I'm Carol Macconnell, and I've been a professional artist for more than 20 years. I started out as a realistic painter, and I have changed over the years. Now I'm a contemporary abstract painter, and I also have branched out. I do mentoring of artists. I have a course that I teach that is working with interior designers because a lot of artists don't realize that's a resource for them, and it's a very lucrative resource if they can get with the right interior designer. Author, I'm in a couple books and we can talk about that later, but I've been doing this for a long time. I'm in a building with 200 artists. I'm asked a lot because I know a lot about marketing. I have over 10,000 followers on Instagram, and I don't know how many on Facebook. I know a lot about marketing, and I'm always happy to help whoever needs help in the building, in the country, in the world. Any artists that reach out to me, I'm happy to help them.
I love that. Well, I'd love to start with, I definitely want to get into marketing, but can we start with your expertise in partnering with interior designers? I know it's a very powerful revenue stream and something you lean into a lot. How did you first kind of discover this? How did you first start working with interior designers? Can you kind of give us your background with that?
Well, in my case, I'm in a building, like I said, with 200 people. We're open once a month to the public, and I never know who's in my studio. So one day, an interior designer reached out to me, had seen my work. So I was lucky in that case because I was introduced to the whole world of interior design that way. But I teach artists how to find them, what to do once they find them, and all of that. But I've worked with a lot of interior designers, and you can get some really funny projects. If you're not flexible and you don't like change, it's probably not for you. But if you don't mind them saying, oh, she hates purple, take purple out of the whole thing. If you don't mind comments like that, and you can definitely, what I look at it as is their painting and I'm facilitating it. I'm putting it on canvas for them, but it's not my painting. It's not going to be in my gallery afterwards. It's going to be in their home. So
Right.
as many changes, whatever they want to do, I'm up for. And you've got to be ready for that.
Do you have any kind of funny or memorable commissions that you've done that stand out to
I
you?
I do. When COVID hit in 2020, I took a commission because, everything shut down. And I thought, what better to do than paint on this commission during the early months of COVID? The interior designer had a client who had just gotten married, and they honeymooned in Rio de Janeiro, and they wanted a painting 48 by 60 of a street scene in Rio de Janeiro with the mountains in the background and the sun coming down and dancers on the street doing the salsa, and the two of them in front doing the salsa. She had to be in a red fringe dress, and they had no pictures of them doing the salsa.
Oh my God.
So I had to piece the whole thing together. I had to Google that, find it. I worked from about, I don't know, 6 to 10 photos to get,
I'm sure.
the other dancers and the whole bit. It was a crazy commission that I wouldn't want that to have been my first commission ever, because I would have been way overloaded with all the stuff I had to create. But she loved it in the end, and that's what's important. But it was a crazy commission.
Yeah, that's wild. Are you open, and it sounds like you maybe are, to just kind of any commission that people bring to you, or do you try to stick with more abstracts or not? Kind of, can you walk us through that process or how you think about it?
It depends on what the commission is. I just did another commission for a client. The client of the interior designer had an Asian inspired home, and she wanted 3 panels in her dining room, and she wanted cherry blossoms. And I could interpret that. I did more than usual. I did like 6 sketches that she picked from, and we worked through it. And I did a lot of samples for the technique. The client was very involved in this. So that one I wanted to do. If it was something that really didn't appeal to me, that would be great. But a lot of times it's not just abstracts. I wish it was, but they come to me. And if I have the time and the interest in doing the project, then I definitely take on projects that aren't exactly what I'm doing in my own gallery.
Right. What does your balance look like? How much time are you spending doing commissions and things for designers and other people versus how much are you painting, for yourself in your own gallery?
Well, I kind of do them both at the same time. I usually have, my own paintings going on. And if I get stuck on the commission, I'll go work on my own paintings and back and forth. But I'm working on another commission right now. And that painting has a lot of thick paint and has to dry. So I have drying periods that I can go work on my
Right.
own work. So I would say when I have a commission, it's probably 50-50. But you also have to understand I work 6 days a week. So I'm here from 8:30 to 5 Monday through Friday and 9 to noon on Saturday. So I paint a lot. When I say 50%, that's probably more time than most people paint in a whole week. So
Right. Yes,
yeah.
that's impressive. Okay, so a lot of artists I work with are definitely interested in getting in with designers. Since you are an expert in this area, can you share how you recommend artists start building those relationships, like finding them, but also forming the relationships that you have with interior designers?
Well, you need to work with more than one because they're not always going to have a project that fits for you. You want to stay in touch with them. When you do a new piece or a series, you want to send it out to them. You can print it out on beautiful paper with just the image and the information at the bottom so the client can present it to their client. But you've got to do work on your end to stay in front of the interior designer. They're working, a lot of times the art's the last thing, and I'd love to change that paradigm. I'd love to change that paradigm that they start with the painting and build the room around it. But I have to say that's not always the case. So,
Right. Right. And I think that's, it is the way it is. And I think every designer works differently. But what you said that I think really is important for artists to hear is that they're busy and they're juggling a lot, and your art isn't the only thing that is making this room. So I love that you're saying you're reaching out to them when you have a new piece. You're not sitting back waiting for them to always come to you, which I think is a mistake some artists make.
absolutely. They're not thinking about you. They're
Like,
not
truly, I
thinking
mean, I
about
think
you at
that's
all.
true across the board. And I mean that not in a negative way, but we're not top of mind to our clients across the board, every single day. We have to remind them that we exist and then we have great art that they should purchase.
And it's a long game. It's lovely when it's a quick win, but mostly you're building a relationship that is going to pay off over time.
Right. And I work with a lot of designers myself, and you have some they'll want 5 projects from you, and then you might not hear from them for 2 years, but then they might want to. That's
Right.
why having a lot, I think, is really important. Like you said.
You can have them all over the country. They don't have to just be in your hometown. So,
Right. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about marketing because it sounds like it's something that you're really an expert in. You've grown your Instagram, Facebook, all of that. Can we start with Instagram and share how has that been a tool for you and how have you been using it to grow your exposure?
well, there's a lot to Instagram.
It's a loaded
I
question.
Yeah, I post, sometimes I post every day. Sometimes I post, I miss a week or two, but staying active on there is important for the algorithm to find you and push you out to other people. Even though people don't comment and people don't like the post, there's a lot of voyeurs out there that are looking at Instagram every day. They're not responding like you'd like them to, but they see your work. And I'll run into people that say, oh my gosh, you're so busy. They know what I'm up to. So staying active on Instagram, even if you don't get the likes and the comments, is very important. I had one interior designer, I was working on a piece and she was building a house for herself and saw the piece on Instagram and bought it. Now that doesn't happen every day, but I was
Right.
very happy that that happened and also that it was going in her new house. I thought that spoke volumes of the work that she was seeing.
Absolutely. How are all the different ways you're marketing your work and what tends to work the best? Maybe, go through all the different channels. So galleries, designers, Instagram, email, all that stuff?
I'm not opposed to galleries, but and I'm in some, but the gallery game has changed a lot. In the old days, when they got a new piece of artwork from an artist, they would contact their collectors and they'd say, "Oh, I have a new piece from Macconnell, come and see it." And they don't do that anymore. They get all of their inventory for free. They don't pay you until they get paid. They have some galleries actually have a storehouse, not in their gallery, of art because they get so much for free. And usually the common thing is you give them three pieces and they can put two in storage. One usually goes on the wall, at least you hope. It's just not the game it used to be. You're so excited. You got a new gallery. You're so excited. You ship
Right.
your work off and it's crickets. A lot of times you don't hear anything. I think the game has changed a lot. And the buyer out there is more savvy and they don't mind looking on Pinterest. They don't mind looking on Instagram and Facebook and seeing art that they like and purchasing it. So, although I think galleries are important, I don't think they're the only game in town. So, that's galleries, interior designers. There's also art consultants, which is different than a gallery. And they usually don't have a gallery attached to them. They work in an office building and they supply artwork to businesses or hotels or whatever. And they might need 200 prints for the rooms and six original art for the lobby and one off the elevator on every floor. So and then they're looking for that. And with that world, you don't miss a deadline. If they tell you that they're installing on the 15th and you deliver your work on the 16th, you will never work with them again
Yeah.
because, it's a business to them and they are supplying artwork. So that's another thing to look into is art consultants. I always want to say art curators, but that's different. So anyway, and then Facebook, Instagram. I also do mailings. I can either email a PDF of 10 images of my work, or locally, I've been delivering all my new work printed out, like I said before, in a beautiful envelope, with a note in there saying, I want to work with them again. And I'd love to send that out every 3 months, but you know how life gets in the way. I've also, over the years, I have an email list of quite a few interior designers, like almost 1,000. And I email to them. I try to do it monthly. It's more like every 3 months. But this project I just completed, I'm about to do of the cherry blossoms. So I'm about to do a mailing because there were lots of parts to it. And I documented the steps and I want to send it out so that they can see how comprehensive I can be in a commission. So that email hopefully will go out in the next 2 weeks. It's hard to keep up with all the marketing that you really need to do these days to be a professional artist. You just can't sit in your studio and hope to be discovered.
It's changed. I mean, I think the art market has definitely changed. You have a very sizable email list. Can I ask how you worked to grow it? Like, how did you get that many people on your mailing list?
In the beginning, way back when, I was just able to find interior designers. I added them to the list and then I send to them and ask if I can, I tell them that I put them on my email list. And if they'd like to unsubscribe, they can, because you can't just put people on your list without their approval. When you look at magazines, your local magazines or magazines in cities you'd like to work in, and you look at their design magazines, they always tell you who the interior designer is at the end, and you can Google them and find their email address and say, I saw you in Florida Design. I love the project you were working on. I would love to work with you in the future. Here's a few of my pieces. So
Yeah.
there's all kinds of ways out there.
Well, I want to talk about, how the art world has changed. I do think it's different. You can't sit back in your studio. You really have to, show up and do a lot of the marketing yourself. How do you think artists are adapting to all of this? I mean, what have you noticed? How have you changed over the years? And how are you thinking about, everything that's going on now versus, 10, 20, 30 years ago?
Oh, it's much different. But today, with the building of these huge homes with volume ceilings, they need larger artwork. And I love to work large. So it's funny, you take a 48 by 60 into one of those homes and it looks like a postage stamp. So, I do work large for that reason. Being a contemporary artist, I've narrowed my niche down to a small group of people. It's not everyone that has these big, huge homes. So if you really want to sell a lot of work to the public, maybe not to, well, some interior designers, yet be a realist and do landscapes. Landscapes always sell. And what I should do is some contemporary landscapes, because that would be a good market for interior designers as well. What I said before about being a realist, there are interior designers that put a lot of realistic paintings into homes. You just need to research your interior designers and make sure your work fits for what they're doing. Also, there's other rooms besides just the main area. They do bathrooms, they do bedrooms, they do hallways, and there might be opportunities there for more realistic pieces depending on the home. So you really need to research your designer and see what kind of work they're placing.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense too, having, if you're an artist that can do different styles and different types of work. I'm just thinking about my own home. I have different work in every, I wouldn't want necessarily my artwork or someone else's artwork that was the exact same in every single room. I might have a landscape in one room, an abstract in another. So I think that's, really smart if you're the type of artist who doesn't want to limit themselves to one type of work or one style. So I think that's really helpful. How have you thought about that as your business has grown and as you've worked with designers who probably expect like a higher end product?
Pricing is very subjective. In my market, I'm probably on the high end compared to New York, LA, Miami. I'm on the low end. So you never know. The best thing to do is be consistent. So my 48 by 60s are all the same price, my 60 by 60s. I used to, if I painted something I loved, I charged more for it, but you can't do that. You need to be consistent, and I can send a sheet that says that by 48 by 60s or this much, so it's very, very consistent. And it's changed. My pricing has changed a lot over the years. I think the more experience you get, or the more your paintings are selling, the higher prices you can charge. But the market right now, paintings are still selling, even though it's a crazy world out there. And I haven't lowered or raised my prices in this market, and I'm still selling. And people still work with interior designers. The ones I know are very busy and still doing a lot of work. Let's see, what was the second part? Pricing and
Yeah, just pricing in general. How do you think about that? I would kind of want to build off what you just said. You said you haven't raised or lowered your prices recently in this market, which I think is great. And I'm experiencing art sales as well. Have you ever lowered or considered lowering your prices due to market changes or stagnant sales or anything like that? How do you think about those kind of things?
Sure, I have. If somebody comes in my studio and they really love a piece, I will work with them if I feel like it's out of their realm, but I will ask them if they have a budget up front. And if it's an older piece, I'm more than happy to work with them on pricing. Also, my clientele that has bought before, I give them all 20% off on their next painting. So that's a good way to, bring people back. I've had some clients buy many times and they'll remind me that they get the 20% off. That is also the commission I give interior designers, where galleries take 50%, interior designers, I pay them 20.
Yeah.
So, oh, that's why you don't want to work with an interior designer through a gallery, because if the painting's $1,000 and you give the interior designer 20% off the top of that 800, you're going to get 400. So that isn't pretty. Nothing. There's nothing to like about that. So your $1,000 painting is now $400 to you.
It's something that I think is really important to talk about because I think a lot of people see the opportunity, the flashy opportunity to work with a gallery and a designer or a designer. And like, I think it is important to run the numbers and make sure, I mean, you got to think about your input costs, your time. Are you even making money on this? Really? I love that you pointed that out. I really want to talk and spend some time on the Radical Courage, the book that you have co-authored. You have a chapter in. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what inspired this project?
Sure. I have a friend who's also been a mentor from time to time, and her name is Jessica Hughes. She put together this idea of bringing together people to write a chapter about different topics. And the first one was mostly artists, but over the years, it's we've only been doing this a couple of years. This is the fourth one, and it's called Radical Freedom. And there's some amazing stories in here, and I have a chapter in here, and they come out on Amazon and they're instantly bestsellers, which is really truly amazing. So in certain categories, we're still a bestseller, but the day it
That's
comes
great.
out, it's just, yeah, it's really amazing. But there are just lots of stories in here about how people value their freedom, whatever inspires their creative soul. So
What did your chapter touch on?
mine's called A Cup of Courage. And it is, I have two cochlear implants. I'm virtually deaf. I talk about that and how that works in my world of art, and how people coming into my studio, how I have to adjust and all of that. But I had a teacher that way back when I was a realistic painter, I was doing a workshop with him, and we were out in the stream, painting, the whole group of us. And every morning he'd talk about the day before. And he said, Carol comes in the morning and drinks a cup of courage. And that always just stayed in my heart. So I talk about that experience as well.
Yeah, and what does drinking a cup of courage mean to you, and what can, our audience take from it?
Well, I just think that there are no limits. I have a handicap, if you want to think of it that way, because I can't hear.
Mhm.
And it is frustrating. I can hear, but I don't hear like normal people hear.
Right.
So I'm a lip reader, and people a lot of times want to turn towards the painting and talk to me, and I can't see their lips.
Right.
I catch the first sentence, maybe a lot of the second, and I'm guessing at the third, so it's I can say the stupidest things because I'm assuming I know what people said. But yeah, I think it's just the courage to continue. Most people don't know that I can't hear. So it's just a story about how you just do it anyway. You still
Right.
get up every morning and do what you do. And I think that's an important lesson for everybody is to.
Absolutely. I really love that. I think something that a lot of artists deal with in particular is imposter syndrome and feeling like
Yeah.
well, everything that comes with that. Is that something you've ever dealt with, or have you always been this courageous, in the pursuit of your art?
Oh, imposter syndrome, I think happens for every artist. All you got to do is get on Instagram and you feel like a fraud. You think, oh my God, I'm no good. Look at these artists. And you can't do that kind of comparison because there's art for all different people. So, but yes, I walk in some days and think I forgot how to paint. So it happens to everyone, and I just push through it. You just can't. Other people, I'd love on Final Fridays, which is when our studios are open to the public, when people come in and they say, oh, this is my favorite studio I've seen. There's 200 in this building. So I'm just like, oh, thank you. Or they remember a painting I did from years ago, or they tell me of a painting they bought, and I don't recognize them because it's been years. But all of that just knocks imposter syndrome right on its butt. So, it's a good thing that you just keep pushing through. You can't, I'm so passionate about doing art that I don't let imposter syndrome last for very long. I just continue to work.
I love that. And I think we were actually talking yesterday, the group of artists in the club that I work with, we were talking about markets, and I was saying a great thing to overcome imposter syndrome is in-person events or people coming into your studio, because generally you do get that positive feedback. And I think a lot of the times when we're alone and we're in our own studio and our only outreach to the world is social media, which is obviously the highlight reel and all of that, it's really easy to kind of sink into that imposter syndrome hole. And I definitely relate to you where I have those days and I'm like, I forgot how to paint. But then
Right.
you invite people in different ways and you get that positive feedback and you're like, oh, I am good at this and I should be doing it. And it is making a difference and people appreciate it. So I think it's nice to hear that you also deal with it and everybody
No,
deals with it, but that you also can get over it, you know? It's waves.
I forget who said it, but I think it might have been Picasso who said something like, inspiration finds you while you're working. Because a lot of people ask me how I stay inspired, and I have no problem with that. I have more ideas than hours in the day. So, if you're working, imposter syndrome can't stay around. You'll just
Right.
work through it.
Yeah.
I always feel like my masterpiece I haven't painted yet. The best is yet to come. If I just get it out my fingertips onto the canvas.
Speaking of kind of staying inspired in your routine, what does kind of a week in the life look like? I know you said you paint generally like Monday through Saturday, but
Mhm.
how much time is devoted to actually the painting and being in your studio versus, the business side of things and marketing? How do you kind of structure that if you have a system for it?
I mostly do my marketing in the morning. I come in my studio and I look at my emails and, I plan a post if I don't already have one in mind or created. And so I do all that. I paint mostly in the afternoon unless I have a painting that's really going. And then in the morning, I'll want to paint. So I'll push off the marketing. But for the most part, and I also at home with my husband at night while we watch TV, watch whatever. I'm always on the computer doing marketing then. You also have to photograph your work, you have to update your website, Artist Archive,
Hmm.
which is a great program to keep your paintings categorized and to know where they are and to print out labels for a show and all that. But you have to keep that updated. I do a lot of that at night while I'm sitting in front of the TV. You don't have to really pay attention to these shows. You just listen and get some work done.
To relate to that. I think artists always ask me, how do other artists manage their time, set up their weeks? Because it is a balance. And I love that you're prioritizing that studio time. Can you share just a little bit more of, how you're helping other artists? I know you mentioned you have a course, you've been in different books. Is there anything else I'm forgetting at the moment?
Let's see. What else do I do?
So,
Yeah. At the present, I've been promoting my course, which just came out, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago. I'm also in shows. I have a show coming up in October. There are 9 women, and it's based on balance. So I've been doing paintings for that. There's also some competitions that I enter. There's one here locally called Art Comes Alive, and I've got to think of a painting for that. So I'm also in another show that's at a local college, and I just dropped off 2 pieces for that. And then there's a gallery downtown that's not your traditional gallery. It's more of just a space in a lobby of a large office building, and they rotate shows every 2 months. And I just hung a show in there last Wednesday that'll be up for 2 months. So, with all of that,
you're busy.
that's, yeah, I'm busy.
Well, can you share with the listeners everywhere where they can learn about you, your work, your course, your books, all of these different things?
Yes, my website is my name, Carol Macconnell, and McConnell's hard to spell. You can put it in the show notes.
I will.
It's MAC. Everybody forgets the A. So carolmcconnell.com is my website. My Instagram is Carol Paints _, and my Facebook is Carol Macconnell.
Thank you. Well, I will link all of that. Could you leave our listeners today with one piece of advice that has helped you to grow your business, to improve your art, or just something that you want to pass on to other artists?
Keep learning. I still buy courses. I still buy painting courses. I love all of it. I just keep learning. Never stop learning. Never stop changing. Never stop pushing yourself. It's worth it. So
I love
That
that.
would be
What,
it.
yeah, what a great way to end it. Well, thank you so much for spending the time with me today and for doing this interview. This was great.
I've loved every minute of it.